to speak. Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here, Fred Shadows.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, Fred.
Welcome to episode 449 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, May 30th, 2024 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomorian, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From Northrend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. As always, thank you for your reviews. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder. I have a cold, because Leah has a cold, and that's just how these things work.
Welcome to parenting.
Yep. Oh, man. I've got so many more years of just getting every plague.
Well, if it makes you feel better, eventually they grow up to be teenagers and then they never leave their rooms and you don't catch stuff from them anymore.
Well, I mean, hopefully she'll still, like, play video games on the couch with me or something. Or watch anime. But anyway, yeah, so that's me. A little sick. I went and visited my grandmother, which was great. And ladder has been, I kind of can't climb with anything except Paladin. I've tried a bunch of stuff with not so great success. I experimented with the idea of Reno Warlock so that you can still have Reno active for wheel. And it was going okay for a bit, and then it was not going okay. It was super not going okay. Warrior is still a nightmare because of that change they made that was supposed to make it worse and actually got rid of one of its counter matchups because Boom Boss shuffles into Warlock. I don't know how we all missed that, but that is pretty miserable because it instinctively, Wheel should counter that deck, and instead it just doesn't. But what I wanted to face was all the priests, so I could murderize them with Wheel, because what are they going to do? And you know what? I saw 0 priests that day. So I guess they all were in hiding because of Insanity Warlock. So I switched off that, went back to Paladin. I had gotten a bit tired of regular Handbuff list, so I couldn't help myself. I went to Excavate, and I said, hey, you know what? What if, instead of doing my weird greedy Excavate list, what if I just ran deckhands and outfit tailors, and it's better? I also run 2 Whack-A-Knolls because those give you a weapon that you can use to be able to charge with deckhand, and they are spells, so when you're tutoring out your Painter's Virtue, it doesn't get in the way, right? That's kind of the main contention with trying to run more weapons in a Handbuff Paladin is you don't want to screw up your tutor for Painter's Virtue. But it's been great because people will be like, ha, I Viper your Painter's Virtue. Ha, I have another Viper out of ETC. And I'm like, cool, I've got a Valenier. What's up?
Valenier. Oh, that's a throwback.
Yeah.
Now you turn into Rally Valley Pally.
Exactly. Oh, those are the days. So, you can also pick up the hand buffing one, the tool kit that like buffs your whole hand whenever you break a divine shield. That can do a lot of work. So there's some good hits in there. Honestly, Light's Justice as a 2/5 weapon, if you really just need like something cheap to activate deckhands, that's a great one. As we learned from Runes of Darkness, weapons get a lot better with +1/+1. Like a lot of them get a lot better.
It's funny how like more stats is more better.
Yeah, but they go from being like bad to pretty good.
Weapons, it compounds the +1/+1.
Yeah. Because you're adding to both stats. It's pretty significant. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I've been doing. I did Excavate Pally with Outfit Tailor and Deckhands because I think you just need those to close out games now. Because sometimes people are just going to clear all the stuff all the time, and you need to be able to say, well, I've been sitting on these all game. I guess I'll hit you for 30.
Absolutely. No, there's a reason why the charge variant has taken over, but I think you are the first person I've seen to put them together into one deck, so I will have to try that. I am happy to be back. I am mostly recovered from COVID. I am not a parent, but teaching in a school, this is also a way to catch things.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend be like, someone who I know tangentially was like, where do you work that you keep getting COVID? I'm like, well, I got it twice and I work at a school. So honestly, I'm probably lucky I didn't get it more. Although I had let my guard down a little bit. I'm going to be a little more careful, I think. Paxlovid was really, really helpful. Really, really helpful. And all is part of why I was like, I should pursue this right away. And that as soon as I got a positive test, which wasn't until a couple days in. So that really made a difference. The first time that I got it, at this point, I was still really sick. I'm still like, I walk 5 minutes to my car. I park like a quarter mile away from work because there's free parking there. And the school is kind of in a downtown area. And earlier this week, I was just completely wiped walking 0.2 miles to and from my car with my computer. And today, I was only a little bit wiped. Also, last time I got COVID, I was a wreck in Hearthstone for weeks. It took forever for me to recover my rank. I had been doing really well with that draw quest Demon Hunter with Sinful Brand. That was so disgusting.
Oh, God.
And then I couldn't even win with that. I did have a coaching with Wicked, I remember. Like, I was sick out of my mind.
That was that 2-hour coaching that you suffered through because you're like, I want to learn control. And
I know, I'm like coughing terribly the whole time. We still won because Wicked was there. Otherwise, we would not have. He was just telling me what to do. I had a good time. I remember it fondly, but yeah, it was a little silly. So thank you to my people who I'm coaching this month for being understanding. We're doing early June for all of them because I was sick by the time I was trying to put it together, and I would not be a good co-op coach in that situation. But I didn't play for a week because I had been in top 500 when I got sick, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, COVID's the kind of thing where you think that you're thinking fine, and then you try to play Hearthstone, and it's like, nah, you're really not. So I just didn't play for like 8 days, and then earlier this week, I tentatively in the morning, I actually tend to play better in the morning, which is very weird because I always thought of myself as a night person, but Hearthstone reveals all. I'm actually better in the morning. So I played a little bit and I earned back. I had dropped to 800. I'm back in top 500. So I stopped. I beat a golden card back and Jay Alexander this morning to get back into top 500. Thank you. And the game against Jay Alexander was kind of funny. He was on Excavate Rogue, of course. And he got a Wish from the Azurite Scorpion. He got Wish Upon a Star and Repackage. And then got those again with Tess. Although, luckily, the Repackage came second when he played the Tess. So it repackaged all of that stuff into my deck, which helped a little bit. Although I did give him a repackage with Magatha because I forgot that this was a possibility when I played Magatha. I was like, oh, I have both keeper strengths. I'm not going to give him anything with Magatha. Oh, wait, a repackage with Tess in it. But luckily, at that point, I had enough charge damage to close out the game. So I've been feeling like I can perform at my best as long as I ration my stamina a little bit to make sure that I'm able to be on target, and then otherwise like play casual, play Baldur's Gate, because I never quite finished the game. I was like so close, and then I lost steam, so I'm like, I'm gonna last little bit. Also, what happened last week? So Hat posted in the channel, did someone say life on ladder on the show? It's like I felt like I heard that.
I think Edel's always been saying life and ladder, but she says it somewhat quickly. So it can sound like life on ladder. I've always known it as life and ladder. I could see how you could get there.
It was probably me because I've been saying life on ladder, even though it says life and ladder in the show notes this whole time. I somehow heard it wrong when I first listened to it. Of course, I say that, and Hat goes, "Oh, are you saying I talk too fast?"
Yes. The answer there, Hat, is an adamant yes.
Yeah, I mean, given that people who normally listen at 1.5 speed listened at 1x to the show when he was a host, yes, you might.
So I've been saying life on ladder the entire time, but no one noticed until now. So I'm probably going to keep messing this up, but it makes more sense probably as life and ladder in terms of how we do it. But I was like, oh, it's your life while you're on laddering. That makes sense.
I mean, I would have thought that people would get from the fact that we often talk about non-Hearthstone things in this segment. But you know,
it does work better as and.
For me, it was life on ladder because I was changing light bulbs this weekend, if that helps you.
Oh God.
My partner made me climb a ladder into the loft where he works because to see some stuff that he had up there the other day, and I am such a baby about that. I'm just like, oh no. I am not a naturally graceful person, and as a kid, people would always be like, you can do this physical thing, and really I could not. And so I don't trust myself, but it was fine. And he was like, the only way, it's just like playing at a high level on ladder in Hearthstone. You just have to do it. That's the only way you get comfortable. So, and it was worth it because he stores a bunch of stuff up there. He had his old yearbooks. So I was like, all right, this is worth it. I can see him in high school, which was funny. So that was his carrot to get me up the ladder.
What about you, Wicked?
Well, I was chilling at about 10K this weekend. And then I had a coaching that I did with Grizzly Bear, and they said, well, let's, I haven't played a whole lot this month. What's the best deck? I said, well, it's Handbuff Paladin and it's not close. Okay, let's do that. And I said, okay, I haven't played it a lot, but let's give it a shot and we'll figure it out together. And boy, howdy, we did. And I don't think we lost the game through that coaching. And then I got off the call and I said, you know what? I hate that kind of deck, but I guess I need to eat my vegetables and try it. And I climbed from 10K on Saturday to like inside 2K by the end of the weekend. So I guess the deck is good. I did take a couple of suggestions from my co-hosts as far as a couple of swaps once I started running into a lot more taunts and a lot more vipers, but I'm hanging out at like around 2,000 right now. I've not, like I had to do all my climbing over the weekend because like once we get into the work week, like it starts falling apart. Especially yesterday, I tried to play one game and I just said no, it's not happening because I had I'd finally gotten myself back into Hades too yesterday. Because I had a 2-hour train ride home because the train broke down twice on the way home from Boston.
Oh God, twice.
Yes, twice. We were stuck over a bridge at one point for about half an hour to 45 minutes. They got it up and running enough to get it into the next station. And then the lights went out again as it was getting into the next station. So then they had to fix it for another 15 minutes. And then finally it got there. Fun fact, when the engine stops running on the train, the air conditioning also stops working, which...
Oh, no.
It was like 80 something yesterday in Boston. And I was trapped in a metal tube with a bunch of sweaty strangers playing my Hades. So it felt like I was in hell. It was kind of atmospheric, but I would not necessarily want to repeat that particular experience, but I've at least gotten past the first boss into the second one, who I still haven't been able to beat. And my oldest daughter has informed me that she has gotten a full clear. To which I've informed her that she needs to pack her stuff. And, yeah, so things are going well. But I was kind of surprised that it was working as well as it was, and I just had like a ridiculous win rate. And I mean, that's the deck that we're going to talk about in Decksplanations, since that's a deck that all three of us have been playing, and it doesn't sound like we're getting any major balance changes anytime soon. So that's coming up, but we have some news to talk about first, and we got some reveals for Twist, so we'll talk about those along with it.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So before we get to Twist, we did have a server-side patch today, 29.4.3. This was mainly an arena-focused patch, where they made some changes to the card pools and for each class and for neutral, and they adjusted the appearance rates of higher impact cards for downward in Shaman, Demon Hunter, and Death Knight, and increased higher impact cards in Paladin, Priest, and Warrior. So if you've been, I don't believe they reset the arena runs for this, but if you are playing arena, do be aware that that may affect your choice of hero when you are in there. And they had a couple of other bug fixes, nothing really substantial. There are a couple of Battlegrounds fixes, a couple of, it looks like mostly cosmetic fixes. If Splendiferous Whizbang is golden, it will now give golden hero portraits and hero powers. So, enjoy that, I suppose. Non-golden Whizbang will still give golden hero portraits and hero powers if you have the hero that he transforms into golden. So just more goldens all around. But there was a way to kind of tell if your opponent was Whizbang or not by them having a non-golden hero power at a certain point, but also you just see when the game starts. So it's really only in the mulligan that it matters. So that there are just a couple of bug fixes there, but we did get the big news this week is that we got the full announcement for the Twist season that will be starting on Saturday. And we got all 19 decks and for all 19 heroes and all 19 passives and all 19 hero powers. We are not going to talk about all of them, but we will talk about some of them. But they had a little bit of explanation about the thought process. And what they say is that in what makes a hero, in Whizbang's hero, simply pick your hero and play. Each hero has three main characteristics: a pre-built deck, a unique hero power, and a corresponding passive effect. Heroes can also have different life totals. The pre-built hero decks don't have to follow the normal deck construction rules of Hearthstone. Some decks are different sizes, some decks feature a mix of cards across different classes, and many decks have no duplicates for more varied play. Each hero's hero power and passive effect are designed to match that character's flavor and deck mechanics. Our goal is for each hero to feel like a new class. And as a reminder, there are 19 cards. I'm not going to list them all out, but you can go see what they are. You unlock a deck by having that legendary in your collection. If you are missing one, you're going to have to craft it. And most of these, I would say, are not particularly useful in Wild. So that's just going to be a 1600 dust tax if you want to play that deck. But you should get a sense from the deck lists whether that's something you're going to enjoy or not. And I don't think this is the situation where you really need to unlock everything in order to be able to participate. But as soon as you craft the character's corresponding card, and you'll have to make sure to choose the wild filter for a lot of these, then you'll unlock that deck in the Twist deck selector. And the baseline quality of the cards in your hero's deck will match the quality of that unlocked card in your collection. Normal, golden, diamond, or signature. So if you have a golden version of an unlocked card, your entire deck will be golden. If you have a higher quality, diamond, or signature, any cards that can match that quality will match it, and the rest will default to golden. Individual cards in that deck can go above the baseline quality of your deck if you have a higher quality version of those cards in your collection. For purposes of this deck construction rule, signature is considered a higher quality than diamond. And they gave some plans for the rest of the year. So we have this season in June, and then we'll have another season in July, where they're going to be bringing Whizbang's heroes back for the July season with 9 additional new heroes to try. And they did say one of the things we're trying with this twist season is messing with balance cadence for the mode. Whizbang's heroes have variable health that we can quickly adjust, so we plan to make weekly hero health adjustments to respond to meta developments. The hope is that these weekly updates will help address the issue that we've seen in the past, where twist seasons didn't line up well with our patch schedule. We'll still be looking at adjusting all other things like hero powers, passive effects, and deck lists in our normal schedule balance patches. So after July, Twist will be dark again for a while. We're going to get 2 more seasons later in the year that are going to revisit Caverns of Time and Wonders. And then after that, Twist will be dark for the rest of the season, which is a bit of a bummer, but also interest with Twist kind of inversely correlates to how fresh the standard environment is or Battlegrounds. So it kind of makes sense for this to be an event that is coming in after the mini set, after a lot of that stuff, after those metas have kind of settled down for a bit and people are looking for something new.
They also note they want Twist to be like an event rather than background noise. And certainly we've seen the participation in Twist tends to peak and then quickly decline. Hopefully this season will see a little more sustained interest. But I do see that logic, even though it is a shame that there'll be so many months where we don't have Twist. But they want to make sure that the interest is sustained for the time that it's there.
So do we want to talk about overall impressions of these decks before we start talking about, like, we each picked 1 or 2 that we wanted to highlight?
Sure.
Well, Wicked, you had a line when we were talking about this before the show that was, this is Hearthstone Commander.
Yeah. And, you know, as I've said on the show the last couple of weeks, I've been getting into Commander, you know, and or having a midlife crisis around it. And I do think that that's what, I don't know if that's what they're trying for, but it definitely feels like that, right? Like where you have a hero that's kind of like your passive and your hero power are kind of like your commander in this case, where that's both changing the way that you would play the deck and also kind of guides how the deck is going to be built around the passive and the hero power, which is a little bit different than constructed, where, I mean, the hero power is there, but sometimes you just ignore the hero power. And really it's more about the cards that you have access to, because the cards can come from anywhere, right? They're not tied to the class. It really is built around the hero power. And then because you have that as a passive and a hero power, you don't need to, you know, have a commander come out in order for your deck to work. But that also kind of leads to a lot of these decks being Highlander decks, a lot of these decks being larger deck sizes, larger health totals, because these are, it feels like a commander pod where everybody's agreed that this is going to be kind of a lower, less sweaty experience, right? And then people are kind of trying to balance around that. And I don't know if we're going to get there with the first batch, but I think that's kind of the goal over the course of the month, is for them to balance to the point where there's not just one deck that's good, right? Where it might not be that every deck is at the same level, but that you have choices and that every deck matches up into every other deck, at least like 60-40 at worst, right? Which is kind of different than what we're looking at. I think the fact that these are pre-constructed means you can't really get an edge in deck construction. And it feels more like a casual format that happens to have a ranked ladder behind it rather than a true ranked system like we've had with Twist in the past.
Yeah, I was initially very confused as to why there's so many Highlander decks when none of them have Highlander payoffs, or at least not that I saw. And when you mentioned, oh, this is Hearthstone Commander, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess it is, huh? And I'm curious whether that was intentional. They would never tell. But
yeah.
Or if it just sort of happened because a bunch of them do play Commander. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, in a sense, the way this is different is you always have your Commander out because it's the passive and hero power, and a lot of them work really, really well together. Now, that needs to make up for, you know, some number of the cards in the deck list being more mediocre in quality. But there's some pretty exciting stuff in here in terms of how these decks will play out. And each time I look at something and I'm like, oh my god, that's ridiculous. I'm like, but I said that about the last two pairings of passives and hero powers. So I don't really know how some of them will end up playing out against each other. Because, of course, everyone has a passive and hero power that synergize really, really well.
It feels a little bit like with the card choices in the decks, they're trying to make it, oh, this has it almost a little bit duels like these are crazy synergies you couldn't get in regular, except for it's built in such a way that you can't be the person who brought the competitive commander deck to the regular commander friend group. You can't have that like turn 3 kill probably with any of these. Plus, I think that's also part of why they bumped the health up. You know, everything except for Xyrella starts at 30, but she can go up to 60. Everybody starts at least 35 health for now. So, but then the aggro decks to make up for that have these like crazy, you know, Omu. Almost everything is 3 mana or less, or you know, or aggro decks with everything costs 1 less, and it's a low curve, and it's just going to be nuts. Except for everybody has more health, so and everybody has something crazy. So hopefully they work out well against each other. And we know from Battlegrounds that adjusting hero health, at least in that mode, can be a fairly effective lever for fine-tune balance. We'll see how that works with Constructed. It might be a little harder to make up for things with starting hero health, but I think it's cool that they have come up with a way to try to work around the timing issue that has definitely been a significant problem in the past.
Yeah.
The other thing I really appreciate is that they just didn't care about classes when they picked the cards. Like, these technically, you know, if you're looking at the donkey side of lists, align with certain classes, but not really any of them, actually, because your hero power is obviously different along with the passive, so that makes it unlike the hero that it theoretically pairs up with. And the cards are from all kinds of classes. Maybe there's like a dominance in one particular class that it's theoretically supposed to be, right? Kael'thas Sunstrider is mage, so there's a bunch of mage cards in there, but there's also like Trading Session, which is a warrior card, Unstable Fellbolt, which is a warlock card, and
it has Instructor Fireheart, which is Shaman.
Yeah. So they just went for it. And that's something that I think makes it just sort of extra special in a perhaps otherwise underappreciated way, is these are just card combinations that you never get to do. It's why the Halloween arena I always thought was so cool, was because sometimes you're like, oh, I can draft these two things together, and so this thing's never supposed to get poisonous, but Rogue can give a minion poisonous. Yeah, like, just weird stuff like that. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to experience, you know, some of those kinds of interactions.
Yeah, and I know that there are some duels players who are a little bit upset because, you know, well, they just took these passives and hero powers and, you know, they could have done this in duels. And it's like, well, the difference between this and duels is that duels just had a hurdle in front of it in that you needed to know how to build the decks. Like, it just kind of showed you a blank slate. It's like, here, have fun. And if you didn't know to either go to hearthstonedex.net or you just knew how to build something like that to start with, and even once you get the starter deck, you would need to know like what buckets to pick to make it go.
Yeah.
And get offered the right things to make it go. And not everyone was good at that. So like, when you get into high level duels, or when you got into high level duels, I guess I have to use past tense now. Like, you would get into kind of these ridiculous, like, Autobot versus Decepticon punching each other in the face type of games where everybody was doing the thing and it was all ridiculous. But a lot of times your runs would end before you kind of got to that point if you didn't know what you were doing. Here, you're more or less guaranteed to be able to get to the point where you can do the thing. I mean, obviously, there's some piloting skill involved. You need to understand what the deck does and how to do it, but you don't need to know how to build it, and you don't need to have any cognitive overhead, rather, of having to be able to build it. And I think that's a big difference. And I think this is going to make it a lot more accessible. The potential dust cost involved aside. But again, I think that this kind of experience also is going to be somewhat tailored for people who have at least a little bit of dust surplus and not really for newer players who are just getting used to the game as it is. So,
and it's so much less dust than crafting a bunch of cards.
Oh yeah,
you don't have.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch that are just in core, right? Like, what, Archvillain Reform is currently in core.
I think Dr. Boom is. Well, we have the list, right? We don't need to guess at it.
Yeah.
It's Illidan Stormrage, Alakir the Windlord, Archvillain Reform, and Leroy Jenkins are in core. And then Kael'thas Sunstrider and Cthulhu are not in core, but you can get them by opening one pack of Whispers of the Old Gods or Ashes of Outland.
Right.
So there's 6 decks that you can have available for free just by having access to the core set. And then if you want one of the other ones, then you would have to craft the legendary.
And some of these are things that if you played back then and you don't dust everything, you probably have, like Grand Bronzebeard.
Right. I think it's a good way of like dealing with the accessibility barrier that people had complained about so much with the deck building ones before they now on this one are complaining, but now we can't deck build. Obviously, it's different people.
Yeah.
But still being able to reward the way that they described when they pitched Twist or when they said this is a thing we're doing, rewarding players for hanging onto their cards, right? And so this still does that, but in a much more broadly accessible way. Like, I'm going to be able to play any of these when it drops.
Yeah. And you probably only need to craft like I don't think you're going to need to play all 19 decks, right? Like you can pick 1 or 2 that appeal to you. And if they're doing this right, then they should be balanced against each other and you should be able to still have a fun time with it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to try hard this, maybe don't try hard it. Maybe just enjoy it.
But I actually really appreciate, like, even though I enjoy the deck building elements of some of the previous ones, I really appreciate having something like this where there are these really cool hero powers and passives and combinations of cards. And I don't have to think about it, right? I can just be like, I'm not feeling standard right now. Let me hop into Twist. I don't need to know anything. Just like basically, okay, what's this trying to do? Hopefully it'll show in the client what their like passive and hero power is.
I believe it does, yeah.
And I can just take a look at those and be like, oh, that seems cool, and play it, right? And so I still feel rewarded for having older cards that honestly are getting dust, and in the metaphorical sense. And I don't have to have that sort of mental tax of like, oh, I do want to play this alternative mode of Twist, but I've got to come up with decks and everything, right? It'll be a nice change of pace to just be able to dive in and play.
Yeah, we have enough material for a whole long podcast every single week about all the details of Standard, mostly. That's a lot to keep up with. And so, I can see for people who really liked diving into all those details of duels is really a loss. But I think this gets some of that craziness. You would never have this in regular Hearthstone with a little more accessibility. So hopefully it's something that is popular, and I'll definitely give it a shot. We had wanted to touch on a couple of heroes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you both what jumped out to you. Like, what are you looking to try when you do get around to playing Twist next month?
Well, the first one that popped out to me was the Cthulhu deck, because Cthulhu never really actually worked. Like, I shouldn't say that. It very briefly on release, there was like kind of a Cthulhu Druid, and then Cthulhu Warrior was in Worlds, but like it was very minimal in the way that Cthulhu kind of worked, and then it came back a bit with that one twist where the rogues were ridiculous, right?
I mean, that was a rogue that had Cthulhu in it.
Right.
Like Cthulhu was not really that was more of like the 7-drop that killed a minion than it was actually about Cthulhu. Yeah.
I saw tons of Cthulhu because I was playing at like Platinum. People loved Cthulhu with platinum
But
and gold.
so this deck, 35 health, passive, I am inevitable. Cthulhu starts in your hand. After 2 friendly minions die, give your Cthulhu +1/+1. Dirty Rat, as far as I saw in my brief overview, is not in any of these decks, so there's no disadvantage to it. Cthulhu starting in your hand, it just means you'll have it. Remember, Cthulhu has been buffed to 8. It's actually not listed as in the deck list.
I wonder if maybe it's just not part of the deck. Maybe it's just like they just add it to your hand.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, so, and then the after 2 friendly minions die, give your Cthulhu +1/+1 is just silly. Because it's a deck filled with, like, you've got Swarm of Light Bugs, you've got Glowfly Swarm, you've got Flipper Friends.
Bees.
Yeah, bees, Imp Boss, just all kinds of token generators. Mining Casualties, right? Which is good on its own.
It's just a token deck with some
it's
Cthulhu accessories.
And so you go wide, and then you just have this enormous Cthulhu. So you'll basically always be able to twin Emperor Veclor on curve activated. Trial by Fire, of course, is great. It just means that, like, you're going to be playing an aggressive token game, and you will be able to Cthulhu on 8 if you want to, or you can keep charging it up. And you have a value hero power of just 1 mana, discover a follower of Cthulhu, which I think just means, like, one of the Cthulhu cards, right? Like, has, if you're Cthulhu, something in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that it doesn't have any of the buffers in the deck. It only has the payoffs, right? Like, so Claxy Amber Weaver, Twilight Darkmender, Ancient Shield Bearer, like, none of the ones that actually buff Cthulhu, which, because you don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So that was the first one that stood out to me. What about you, Megasa? First one stood out to you?
First one that stood out to me was the first one. So Donkey made a list. I have the link in the show notes of all of the deck lists and information about them, which if you were having trouble looking at the PDF that Blizzard posted going, what is this card? Because it never saw play ever, or it didn't see play when I was playing.
It was also a 38-page PDF, by the way.
So I found Donkey's list very helpful, and the first one on it was Illidan Stormrage. And this is, you have health 40, passive. After a friendly character attacks, reduce the cost of a fell spell in your hand by 1. Hero power, 1 mana, +1 attack and lifesteal this turn. And this is one of the only ones with duplicates. And it's just like a lot of tokens that die, and then a lot of burn, and then Jace. And then you just play fast and furious, reduce your stuff, and then OTK them. You have Stargazer Luna. You have Archmage Vargoth to recast, your Fan the Hammer, your Fell Barrage. You can copy stuff with Dryscale Deputy. You have Grave Defiler, which was a Warlock card that copies a Fell spell in your hand. That never really, it was part of that Fell package in Warlock that never actually materialized.
Oh, man. So somewhere Mad at Arms is like angry that the only people who get to play the Fell package are the Demon Hunters.
We've also got Chaos Creation, speaking of Warlock cards. Technically, that's also a Mage card, which I completely always forget. So, Metamorphosis, you've got Jotun, the Eternal, to cast a copy of your spells. So that just seems like I do enjoy occasionally your spell slinging Demon Hunter archetype. So that stood out to me as just that, and a couple of the other ones look like you're just gonna play out everything you have, just throw everything at the board, and then see if it works. And it's not affecting my ranked standard ladder, so it doesn't matter. That sounds like a good time to me.
So, on the other end of the spectrum, I read down to Xyrella, and then I stopped reading. Because, I mean, which should be no surprise. First of all, by the way, I should point out they picked the good Xyrella portrait with the such skill, well played emote. So make sure to use that liberally. Yes, that will enhance your playing experience. That's a pro tip from me. But so Xyrella is one of the only heroes that starts at 30. But her passive is called Purify the Shard. Your max health is 60. Reach it to win the game. Oh, and we're not done. Damaging the enemy hero heals your hero. So you go face and you heal. Like, this is perfect. This is the best ever. And then her hero power is Spark of Light. 1 mana, restore 2 health. Mana Thirst 8, restore 4 health instead. And it has more or less what you would expect. More or less anything that has lifesteal on it. You have some of the, if you've restored health this turn, discover a spell like Cleric of Anshi. You have Crystal Stag, which is a card that has literally never seen play, which is a 5 mana 4/4 for Druid with Rush. Battlecry, if you've restored 5 health this game, summon a copy of this. So that should pretty much always go off. You have a couple of the lifesteal spells from Shaman, like Dehydrate. You've got Sandhuff Waterbearer, which if you've blocked that out of your memory is a 5 mana 5/5. At the end of your turn, restore 5 health to a damage friendly character. You run both Blightwater Behemoth and Blightblood Berserker, which is the 7 mana 3/8 undead from Shaman with Taunt, Lifesteal, Reborn, Death Rattle, deal 3 damage to a random enemy.
That card was always insane. Like, that is not why Big Shaman mostly didn't work. Like, that card was nuts.
Yeah. Oh, and you run Brittlebone Destroyer, which is if your hero's health change this turn, destroy a minion, because your hero's health should always be changing. So.
And the hero power costs 1.
Yeah, the hero power costs 1. So you should be able to heal every turn. And so not only did I stop reading, but I went and logged into my long abandoned EU account and I unlocked Xyrella on EU so that for my stream tomorrow, which is in Friday evening US time on the 31st, I can then log into EU where it will be after midnight to be able to stream Twist on EU with Xyrella. That is how excited I was. I may be very disappointed, but I will have fun with this no matter what.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to see how it lines up, but I'm not sure you'll be disappointed. Between the passive and some of these lifesteal minions, like if you go face with a lifesteal minion, you heal twice because it lifesteals, and then you heal from the passive. It's I'm not enthused.
Yeah. If 1 mana is too much for you, you also run Raza the Chain, so your hero power will go down to 0. So.
Right, yeah, of course, why not? And, mana at Mana Thirst, it restores 4 instead of 2.
Yeah.
So.
Seems good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, I think, I'm excited to try this as well because it marries Baby Magesa with current Magesa. The Baby Magesa played just like random healing priests that didn't kill the opponent, but just healed themselves. And current Magesa plays priests that kill the opponent. And we have both of them in one deck, so I'm excited. And I had also looked a couple of other ones that I looked at. Kael'thas, Sunstrider, technically Mage. This is the one, cards that didn't start in your deck cost 1 less, and hero power at the start of your turn get a playable spell, which is also passive. And it's just like every card generation spell. And according to a tweet from John McIntyre, who is a lead gameplay designer, this was the most popular in playtesting. I imagine because it's just, for the same reason that people love Excavate Rogue, people love Casino Mage. This is like Casino Mage on steroids. It also has some discard synergy. You just discard all that random BS that you got to fuel things because you don't care because your whole deck is random BS. So,
well, also the cards out of your passive get discarded at the end of the turn if you don't play them. So
that's true. So they get discarded anyway. So then you have, for example, Tiny Knight of Evil. Whenever you discard a card, gain +2/+1. You're going to be discounting even if you're not trying to. So, yeah, that looked entertaining. And Leroy Jenkins, both players' cards cost 1 less, hero power, reckless reinforcements for 0 mana. The next minion you play this turn costs health instead of mana. So you're just, again, kind of like Illidan, but in a different way, just vomiting everything onto the board. It has a little bit of board control, it has a little bit of healing, but it's also got like Knife Juggler. I don't actually, looking at this list briefly, know exactly how I'm playing this, but I know I am trying it.
I mean, you're playing it by vomiting everything on the board, yeah. And then
you keep
Yeah.
Crusader Aura, and that's probably the number one mulligan win rate card in the deck. I almost guarantee. Because everything else it's just going to happen, right? When you can just pay health to play your 3-cost minions, you suddenly don't care about curve so
and
much.
then it has a lot of reload with like Stargazer Luna, Voracious Reader, Magnifying Glaive, Divine Favor. It's like you're playing your whole hand always.
And it's got echo cards in it with everything costs 1 less. It's got Sound the Bells and Squashling in it.
Yeah. But like
That's kind of terrifying, actually.
You can Crusader Aura on 3.
Yeah. And play a free minion.
Yeah. So the curve types out at 5, but it really tops out at 4 because everything's discounted by 1. So it's just, you're just going to be playing everything all the time and making your opponent deal with it.
Well, I would have said your other pick here, but I guess you can have both of the crazy slow options. Actually, the Dr. Boom pick isn't even that slow when you look at the list.
No, it's pretty fast. So that was the other one that jumped out to me, of course, because it's anything that looks like a control deck is something I'm going to play. But Dr. Boom has got 45 health, and a passive of Boom Barrage. After a friendly mech dies, shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck, and your hero power is Boomspiration. 2 mana, summon a 1/1 boom bot, warning bots may explode. And then it's just all mechs. It's like all the mechs, all of them.
Yeah.
And then you've got like Omega Assembly, which is an old card. 1 mana, discover a mech. If you have 10 mana crystals, keep all 3 cards. You've got like Spider Bomb, you've got magnetic stuff, you've got Sea Scout Operator to summon 2/1 Mecha Fish. And just Inventor Boom, obviously. Boom Master Flark. Battle Cry summoned 4/0/2 Goblin Bombs. Of course, you're running Blastmaster Boom because you're shuffling a million bombs into your opponent's deck. You're running Vortron Prime because, of course, you are. But yeah, it's just like all of the mechs, and then you just shuffle all the bombs in, and you hope that keeps your opposing Xyrella, your Xyrella opponent's health down low enough that they can't win the game by getting to 60.
Yeah, like it's a little spooky how it can just be pressuring, and it's like, well, if you kill my stuff, that's a bunch of bombs.
Yeah.
So, because often that's one of the tricky things with a bomb deck, is it's like you're playing this control game and just hoping the bombs kill them. But this is just, no, I'm playing an aggro mech game, and sometimes you'll draw bombs and die.
Yeah. But also the decks are bigger.
Yes, that's true.
The bombs are going to take a little longer to get there, but there's also going to be a lot of them. So,
but also variance.
Like, I don't remember if 60 is actually a hard cap on deck sizes or not, but I remember that number being relevant at one point. So it could be with this deck.
Yeah. My second pick was Bran, which is marked as Hunter. And I guess that makes sense with the passive. So at 35 health, passive Bran saddles after you play a Battlecry minion. Transform it into a random beast of the same cost, which is kind of like a mix Hunter Shaman, right? Because you're transforming, but it's into a beast. So it runs a lot of the stuff that you would expect out of an Evolved Shaman, because they're like, value-oriented Battlecry things, but then they're just going to get transformed into a beast of the same cost anyway, so
yeah,
who
like
cares?
Cred Caretaker, the 4 mana 1/1 summon a 3/5 elemental with taunt.
Exactly. But you've also got like Evil Cable Rad and Maze Guide and oh gosh, what are some other ones?
Well, Painted Canvasaur seems pretty good if you're turning everything into beasts.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of picked all of the things that are like crappy main body Battlecry, summon a decently sized thing.
Yeah.
And since that crappy main body will get transformed into a decent of the same cost, it's actually pretty nice. And if you do so choose to pay the 1 mana tax of just like making all your stuff 1 more effectively, Crack the Whip is the hero power, 1 mana, your next Battlecry triggers twice. And there are some good hits there. Alex draws the Lifebinder for a nice 16 damage for 10 mana. Tidal Revenant, heal 10, gain 16 armor, even just like, double Lotheb so that your opponent can't play spells.
Double Lotheb's just hilarious.
I was about to say.
Or Rattling Rascal, which, man, that's a deep cut. 4 mana, 2/2, battle cry, summon a 5/5 skeleton. And it's got a negative death rattle, right? Death rattle, summon one for your opponent, but it's getting transformed, so they're not actually going to get that. There's a lot of cute stuff like that. So I think this is going to be a pretty fun one to play. Expect to see a lot of it.
Night Elf Huntress is actually kind of sick with that too.
Yeah. To 3 different enemies twice, so you can actually go face for 6.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be fun. Like, I think you may need to go into this with a bit of a different mindset. Like, I really do think that this is a casual format that happens to have a rank ladder and not a tryhard format. But I'm sure some people will tryhard it, and that's fine and good for them. But I think that the idea is that these should all be kind of evenly matched, and you're just going to be able to have a good time with it. I'm looking forward to it. It's a little bit different than what we've gotten, and I will admit that I was on the fence about it when it was first announced, but the more I look at this, the more excited I'm getting about it.
Yeah, likewise.
We will see in like a day whether this lives up to the hype.
By the time you hear this, you will already have these to play with.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we also have some shop updates as per usual. The main ones are that Bold Garden, Liadrin, and Ember Court Illidan have returned to the shop. Bold Garden Liadrin was one of the Don't Call Them Sailor Moon designs from a couple of years ago. I forget what we called them.
Magical girls.
It's not. I know it's not. I know it's not Star Guardians because that's League of Legends. So whatever we called Star Guardians in Hearthstone, because there also wasn't Sailor Moon. But whatever it is, I actually bought that because I'm playing Paladin and I really do like those skins. So, and then Ember Court Illidan, he's just kind of emo like Illidan always is, but he's got a big sword. So, but those are both 1,000 gold and $6.99 or $6.99 USD, not or $6.99 USD. Still no sign of Squirrel Illyria. Ben Hearthstone is on the case. Don't you worry. He's been anxiously awaiting and refreshing every week and trying. And as soon as Squirrel Illyria is available, we will all know it because Ben Hearthstone will not let us forget it. So, but yeah, no squirrels just yet, but you can still get Rabid Phelan. So that's something you can do, but that is not the most important shop update. The most important shop update is the update to shop.coinconcede.com, where we mentioned this in passing at the end of the show last week. But it is live now. We have our new Unity Precision Perfection design that Megasa has put together in the style of Live, Laugh, Love. You can get it on a throw pillow for extra flavor, or on a wrapped canvas if you prefer, or you can get it on a t-shirt or a hoodie or a mug or a sticker or almost anything else you could think of. And those are available on our site at shop.coinconcede.com. We try to keep the prices as reasonable as Teespring will let us to make sure that people can buy them. But also, the proceeds do support the show and help us keep doing the things that we're doing. So if that is something that is appealing to you, please make your way over there and go order those, and we would super appreciate it.
We have a light version and a dark version as well, because I wanted a black shirt and it didn't look good on black, so I made one that would. So, but I definitely had fun making it, and thank you to Schwal for the original inspiration. She said that she wanted something like this, and I was like, we can make this happen. This is this is definitely doable.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for news this week, but we have some tournament updates because when there aren't tournaments, we make our own. So let's go over to tournaments.
It's the grand tournament.
Yeah, thank you, Megasa, for putting this together, making me feel relevant. You know, when it's not the 3 times a year that we have actual Hearthstone esports. But we have the Concede Listener Series, and this is just quick little highlights of what's been going on. So this was week 1. There's a lot of diversity in brings, no surprise. The meta is fairly diverse, and, you know, some people are aiming to be very competitive. Some people are trying wackier stuff, so lots to experiment with. Every class represented, and no deck brought by more than 25% of players. So most popular was still Handbuff Paladin, X-Fate Rogue, Insanity Warlock, and then Pain Lock was a little bit in there, even though the nerfs happened, still pretty solid. Those are the 3 most popular classes, followed up by some Reno Hunter, Spell Mage, and Reno Warrior, and it just becomes an amalgamation beyond that, right, of various things. Some unusual brings. Leptin brought the Sonya Rogue, which is the phrasing that is used for, PG shows like ours. Shopper DH was also part of that lineup, and then an Aura Holy Paladin, taking advantage of that new mini set card, I would imagine, that gets discounted for holy spells. Really hoping that finds its way into something, because I enjoy those types of cards. And then Pilot brought a Spell Mage with Yogg in the box, a Wishing Well Rogue, and then Handbuff Rainbow DK. There were also some more unusual Reno decks, including a Reno Warlock from Torby Flenderson, who also had a pretty interesting mech-focused Handbuff Paladin, which I dig that, because you can... The Magnetize is spooky with hand buffs. I've criticized the mechs previously, sort of internally, when I face those types of versions, and I'm like, oh god, I left a mech up, and now it's huge. So,
yeah, like your whole deck is outfit tailors, basically.
Basically, yeah. So, that's pretty spooky. And then just some highlight things that happened. Players had voted on being able to play Whizbang instead of a lineup. So you just queue Whizbang all 3, which, yeah, sure, go for it. And World 8 and Finberg opted for a Whizbang only match. And Finberg won the first game against World 8, who comments that Mage is a questionable deck. Fair. But then Finberg's luck took a turn for evil when they rolled Warrior twice. And Warrior is just the all lackiest deck. World 8, whose luck went for lowercase evil, instead rolled Warlock and ultimately took the win. Warlock, I think, is probably the best, most of the time, the best of the Whizbang decks, just because it's 20 cards, so it's extremely consistent and very aggressive compared to the others, which, if you're facing 2 Whizbang decks against each other, having a 20-card, very consistent aggro deck is going to perform very well against a lot of the slower, grindier value decks there. So there's also a weird sort of, Magus is written here, didn't know scorpions were that kind of bug. SSJ5 Goku was confronted with a new bug to be fixed in the next patch. A card granted a death rattle by another card becomes eligible for discovery by return policy, which is pretty annoying to face when the card in question is Azurite Scorpion. I don't know how these things happen together, but return policy, I believe,
Rogue.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Death Growl, probably. Like, you find a Death Growl, and it sounds like they got stung by that one.
Yeah.
So
I've been playing mostly Paladin, so in my head, I was thinking of Azurite Scorpion as the dragon. But yeah, that makes sense. Azurite Scorpion brought back.
I was thinking of Azurite Snake on my end too. So like, yeah.
They all say Azurite. It's This is just even more. So because of the random BS, we got another Azurite Scorpion to give even more random BS.
As usual, Rogue ruins everything. So yes.
Yeah. Return policy, I believe, is the new Demon Hunter card where you discover a death rattle. Right? Is that
you played this game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that seems silly. I mean, that's with that bug, Infinite Scorpions, right? Or no, not infinite. Just as many times as you bounce tests.
So infinite then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. APM Mastery, Minmon built a full 30 power, 44 toughness drum circle board on turn 6, but then Lepton on Sonya Rogue responded with 3 Scoundrel Minis, 3 Sonyas, cover artists involved, 3 perfect ticking Ziliaxes, and 3 mic drops, denting Minmon's board, healing, and making an impressive wall of taunts. Minmon cleared and made more taunts, but Lepton countered with 3 more Sonyas with Deafen, Tarslick, and Valera's Gift for exact lethal on 8. Definitely check out that replay because it's pretty silly to check that out and see how many actions Lepton can do in a turn.
On mobile, which I found very impressive.
Yeah, that's kind of gross. So, I mean, congrats on learning that deck. I gave up after 5 games. But if you're curious what this deck is, I don't recommend picking it up, but it is glorious to witness. You can also check out Pocket Train's stream for that.
Yeah, I gave up on it when I queued into you and you beat me with it. And I beat you with whatever jank I was running. And if I was able to beat you and you couldn't figure it out, I wasn't trying.
Yeah, I did a bunch of stuff and then I was like, well, I didn't win that turn, so I lose. Yep. But yeah, so that's this week's Concede Listener Series Roundup. And being the most popular deck, Handbuff Paladin, this isn't why we picked it, but it kind of works out. That's going to be our Decksplanations. We have covered it a while ago, but it's had some changes since then.
All right, well, like Wicked's coaching, if you're wondering what can I maybe do well with on ladder, obviously it always depends on the person and the pilot and how decks work out for you, but we've all found that the answer was Handbuff Paladin. I always start with the elevator pitch. I think at this point, we know what this deck is about. You make big things to pressure, and then you kill them with charge damage. And it buffs your hand. You AFK a little bit in the early game, and then you swing back. You've got your Lifesteal Rushers, which is still a good card. So we have a couple of lists in the show notes. One is one that Wicked and I have been playing. We've only been playing one card different at this point after changing around a few different cards. And then the Excavate/Charge hybrid that Edel mentioned at the top of the show, which most of the notes I have here are for the version that I've been playing, and then I put, Edel, explain yours here. So
explain yourself.
So the version that Wick and I have been playing is similar to other, any charge variant that you've seen. You've got your Salty Deckhands, you've got your Leroy Jenkins, your Outfit Tailors, a lot of draw in the form of Gold Panner and Astral Serpent. And I'm actually running one Hi-Ho Silverwing because I'm running Keeper's Strength. And this is something that I got from World 8, actually. And the Hi-Ho Silverwing makes it so that this is especially if you're facing more aggressive decks, then this is a version you might want to play. The Vicious Syndicate is much more tuned to facing a lot of Reno decks. But if you're facing a lot of stats on the board or mirrors even, Keeper's Strength can be very powerful. You just don't want to give them the Keeper's Strength with Magatha, which usually actually you don't. And the Hi-Ho Silverwing actually helps make sure that you don't, because it draws it for you before you play your Magatha, potentially. And the draw is definitely important in this deck. The Astral Serpent is kind of but it's better than Acolyte of Pain.
It's fine.
And you don't want to run out of cards. And it's hard to kill when it's big. So you can keep drawing. And then
and I'll say that the Keeper Strength, actually, I found that was less because of aggro and more because of druids who just put up a ton of taunts and that you couldn't punch through. You didn't have enough rushers to punch through in the end games. Like if they went through and built a board with 2 ENRs and a bunch of nest matrons and stuff like that, like it was just hard to punch through. And this just let you put it on one of your smaller minions, clear out the taunts, and then you can hit face with everything else. So that just made it so you could still get through to lethal against druids or other taunt heavy decks.
Yeah, anything with taunts or anything where you just want to, you want to protect some of your, one of your minions. Pain locks, you can sometimes get, it's hard to get big enough if they get the big turn early, but you can sometimes clear out their board there. You can swing back in a mirror, especially now because most other lists are not running it. They make a big board and you're like, haha, you don't have one to do it back to me. So I can just keep restraint you unless you gave them yours with Magatha. So
just don't do that.
just draw well.
Draw in the correct order.
Obviously. The card difference that I have with Wicked is that Wicked's playing 2 audio medics, which is the 2 mana lifesteal, or lifesteal if it's finale to rush minion. I'm only playing 1, and I'm playing Ignis. Ignis mostly to be another weapon for the South Sea deckhands that doesn't mess up your instrument tech, the same reason why Edel is playing Whack-A-Null. But it also can be useful if there's taunts in the ways or things that you need to clear. The 1 mana poisonous, if you are able to get that, can be really helpful. Or if you need more reach in the late game, because maybe your charge, you didn't draw it quite early enough to pump it up quite enough. You need something against a warrior or something like that that can be helpful. Or I had a game against a mage earlier today where I just got I just curved out Ignis on 4, got the 5 mana weapon, got the armor on it, and that extra, and Wind Fury. So that extra damage plus the extra armor so they couldn't OTK me or burn me down. The burn mage was actually exactly what I needed there. The reason why Wicked had cut it is that you only have 2 forge things, your muscletrons. So sometimes it is a dead card in your hand.
Well, and it's just, I never felt like I needed it, right? Like I never, it always felt like a nice to have, but I also just wanted more draw. I actually realized I have another difference, which is I run 1 Astral Serpent, 2 High Host Silver Wings, because the Silver Wings are just, even if they don't draw you a Keeper Strength, they're still a Divine Shield minion. So it's just harder to clear.
Point. That might be better.
They're pretty good on curve, right? So, because that can be a weak point for the deck. And it's sort of this double whammy of, okay, you have a solid 2-drop into something aggressive when you play the Silver Wing, and it'll draw you the Keeper Strength, which is another good card into other aggressive matchups.
Yeah, that's probably better.
Like, the games where I got double Vipered were not enough for me to want to run Ignis for them. And I would rather just make my deck better against the field and accept the occasional. Now, I have not climbed nearly as high as either of you have. So that might have been, but that also might be more of like our average listener's experience than a top 500 legend experience, right? Where there are more people who are, that might filter down to lower ranks now, where people are getting a little bit more tired of this deck and they're playing more Vipers and other, certainly Virus Perfect Ziliax is a thing that you have to deal with. But I never really felt like I had enough instances where I felt like, oh, Ignis would have been good, and more instances where, gosh, I wish this was literally any other card because it's just sitting in my hand right now.
It does skew mulligans, right? It means that you have to keep Muscleatron, which I think is an okay keep in general, because Forge on 2, Muscleatron on 3 is perfectly fine in lieu of, Instrument Tech into Painter's Virtue. But I just like the sort of flexibility that it gives of, okay, I can get a nice 1 mana weapon either for a unique clear that I wouldn't be able to do, or as just like I need a weapon to be able to activate deck hands. Or in some respects, you can take, the draw card one, and so then it is card draw. But that's kind of a me thing, and I definitely think if you're including Ignis, you basically want to keep Muscleatron no matter what.
Yeah.
And then, of course, otherwise on your mulligan, you want the weapon. You can also keep Gold Painter, High Host Silver Wing. If you are pretty sure you're facing aggro, maybe a Lifesteal Rush. If you're pretty sure you're facing control, maybe a Charge Minion, especially if you already have the weapon so that you can just start buffing it. Make sure it's really big.
Instrument Tech, right?
Instrument Tech, of course. Yeah.
If you have Instrument Tech, throw back the weapon.
Yeah, agree. Because then you want to make sure you're getting the draw out of it so that you're drawing with your natural draws, you're drawing things that aren't the weapon, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting the value out of the instrument tech. It's fine. You generally like you would like 2 weapons, but if you're drawing enough, you will find the other one soon enough anyway. I mean, unless you get Vipered right away, and even then you probably can still find it. Okay. So just keep one instrument tech. If you don't have an instrument tech, do keep the weapon just because it is really important to have the weapon on curve in order to be able to get everything else to happen on time.
Another common thing that people include is drone deconstructor, which I do like. I just didn't know what to cut for it in the version that I have. But drone deconstructor, because you can buff the spark bot that it makes, and that can go on the drone deconstructor itself for a little bit of early game contesting, because that's usually a weak point, or it can go on Muscletron, or it can go on Ziliax, which is probably your strongest option.
Yeah. So my version of the hand buff was like no audio medic. I only do 1 instrument tech because I have a thing about running 2 tutors for a 2 of. And I like the drone deconstructor because the Ziliax is twin power. And sometimes you get stealth. So that is kind of my ace in the hole against slower matchups, but especially like druid, warrior, those kind of things, priest, because those are generally like not great matchups for you. It's really tough to deal with the new hotness of Ziliax that is perfect virus. Removing the stealth from that made it an incredibly more powerful defensive tool because it can taunt on both sides rather than, you hit something, it uses up the shield, then they clear it, and it revives Reborn with stealth, so it can't taunt anymore. But yeah, so twin power Ziliax is just this way of like, it's at minimum most of the time buffed twice from Painter's Virtue, and so that's 2 6/8s that are going to double their power. And if you give one of them stealth from a spark bot, like I've done silly things where I put like 2 buffed spark bots, one of which gave stealth, and they're just like, well, I can't clear, and now I'm dead.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, the reason that I was running that for a lot of my climb, and then once I found out about the Keeper Strength list, I was happy to take those out because, like, my feeling when you're running a card like that is that I want it to be Mech Rogue, right? Like, I want that to hit something all the time, and you really don't run enough mechs unless you actually get it on the Ziliax, and you generally feel like you have to play that out as a body before the Ziliax comes down, so you're really getting it on like a Muscletron a lot of the time. So I felt like it was just kind of like whatever, and like I really want that to be charge. I want that spark bot to have charge, and it didn't have charge enough. So I felt like if I'm not getting charge off of that, then I just want that to be something that's going to be generically better, and again, just make my average win rate a little bit better at the expense of swinging for the fences occasionally.
Yeah, see, I like I got Wind Fury, or, well, yeah. All right, I don't have anything to magnetize to, but it has Rush, and or Divine Shield, right? So there are some that are like good even if you don't magnetize, and then others where it's just like, oh, you left up a mech. I'm just going to go ahead and outfit Taylor and then Wind Fury that, right? So
bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
yeah.
I think what you can take from this as well is that the last 4 cards, there's a lot of flexibility on what your pocket meta looks like, what you enjoy playing. VS was even, if you're seeing a lot of the Perfect Virus Ziliax, you could run Yogg specifically to steal that 1 minion.
It's what the Excavate Rogues are doing.
I mean, Excavate Rogue expects to go a little bit longer than this. I mean, the games can go long, but I want my games to be over before Yogg comes out. Like, if I'm getting to turn 9, it's not likely that Yogg's going to make that a win a lot of the time, unless it's literally the only thing between you and lethal on that turn.
See, I have just ceded to the fact that things are slower right now, and it's going to be that way because of Excavate Rogues and these arena decks. So I had a glorious moment where, because my Excavate Paladin runs the Perfect Twin, which is expensive, but a lot of nice healing. I had rogue opponents steal one of them with Yogg and then cast Wave of Nostalgia, so they had no taunts, and I just killed them.
That is the thing about Yogg.
Yogg giveth, Yogg taketh away.
Exactly. We were just chatting in the chat about Nomelia. I have seen that in the occasional list.
Very good.
And, you know, you get her big, she clears a lot. So, especially if you're not running keepers, might be an option, or you just need to clear taunts again. So, that is something else that you might consider if you want another clear tool. And just more big stuff. I mean, everything is better when it's bigger. That's the lesson of this deck. Also, it sounds like part of the reason why Edel, you decided to do the excavate with charge was because you wanted Finley to deal with things. Like,
yep. And so this was my response to the Perfect Virus Ziliax is no way in heck was I going to run Yogg. Like, that's just not happening.
Yeah.
It's a 9-cost minion that gets buffed but can't attack. Like,
yeah.
No, thank you. So I'm just like, well, I like Excavate Paladin. I had my build from before. I just have to accept less greed, right? No Geppetto, no whatever the scarab thing was, right? Whack-a-mole hammers, deckhands, outfit tailor, because I think just deckhand outfit tailor with the buffing is just, it's a necessary requirement to close games when you don't have Wind Fury, right? When you can't Shroomscavate for Wind Fury on Leroy, you just need more charge things. And I've managed to do a significant amount of buffing to the point where it's like, I've got a weapon from Whack-a-mole, and I just go, 2 very large deckhands and large outfit tailors, right? Because it's not much mana for potentially 30 charge damage. And then, of course, Sir Finley can clear the way in the same turn. It's worked out quite nicely. I do like Nomelia and would love to fit her in. It would probably be either cutting a Whack-a-mole or an Astral Serpent, but I don't know which. I feel like both have their pros and cons, where it's like, having 2 Whack-a-moles guarantees I'm going to be able to charge my South Sea deckhands, and having 2 Astral Serpents makes it extremely likely that I'll be able to still get my decent card draw. Whereas 1, it's like, a lot of times you're fine because you're filling your hand from excavates, but sometimes you just sort of miss. You didn't get the early targeted card draw, and you didn't find the one of Astral Serpent, so I'll probably try just the 1 Whack-a-mole to add in Nomelia, because it's such a good clear. But honestly, it took me a while to realize it wasn't there, so maybe it's also fine without it.
Yeah, I'm excited to try that version for sure, because I did always kind of like Excavate Paladin, but always had more success when we were doing handbuff things with charge, but why not both? So I have here macro game plan. We've kind of covered this all already, and I think most people are familiar with this deck, but against aggro, you generally lose the early board, although if you have like a High-Ho Silverwing, you have something to keep you from losing it completely. That's nice, but you expect you're going to swing back with like Tigress Plushie. One thing to keep in mind with Tigress Plushie, think about whether you want if you have the weapon equipped and then you have Tigress Plushie, do you want the +1/+1 on the first half or on the back half? So that depends on whether you play the plushie before you swing or play the plushie after you swing. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the few exceptions to, generally it's like swing with the +1/+1 weapon before you do anything, but deckhands, very important. Yeah. If this is your weapon that's making it charge, then you can't destroy it. And also for Tigress Plushie, sometimes there's an edge case there.
And Magatha.
Sure.
Because Magatha, you generally want to play the Magatha first, so you buff all the minions that you draw, rather than drawing them all unbuffed, right? Mm-hmm. Especially because if you've coined the weapon, that's often your last swing of the weapon. So you want to make sure that you're getting the buff across the whole hand with the Magatha. And I'm sometimes fine with burning a card even.
Oh yeah.
On that turn rather than passing up getting all that value across that gigantic hand.
Yeah, do not be afraid to play Magatha, even if you're running a Keeper Strength version of the list. It's just really powerful to have that card draw. Sometimes you're even using Amethyst just as card draw.
And again, oftentimes you want to draw the 2 minions and then buff them, right?
Yes, that's another place where you want to buff them after. And most of the things are not bad hits. Like the only thing I think you're sad to hit that way is like Leroy, or maybe yours. Yeah, Leroy and your Ziliax are the ones you're saddest to reduce the stats for. But most other things, I think you're fine. South Sea Deckhand now costs 1 more, which isn't great, but you drew it where you might not have. Mm-hmm. So Outfit Tailor now just costs 1 less, and otherwise is the same. So Amethyst is so flexible too, and she can help protect things on the board so that they're a lot harder to clear, except for by Reno, of course. Or she can help clear out their minions. So just all around.
There are sometimes some matchups where it's just like, well, if they don't have their one answer to this, they lose because all their removal is damage based or, minions on board. So for example, Mage, if they don't have the reflections or reverb rather, which some of them have now swapped for buy one, get one freeze. So yeah, if they can't reverb to kill the Amethyst, they need to sink 1 million damage into it, particularly if it's been buffed a bunch. So yeah, it can just hard carry those matchups. And then if it's doing that work, you're like, cool, I'm just going to Outfit Tailor it now because you keep not being able to remove my board this way. So keep your eye out for situations where it can work that way. Now, that being said, there are more Yogs floating around and they'll steal it. So that can be pretty bad.
Yeah.
But
again, if you're getting to turn 9, then you're already starting to run out of time, I find. So those are they're not all like lost causes, but like once you get into the territory where Reno can blow you out, then you're kind of in the danger zone as far as I've seen. Like you generally want to be winning by turn 8 if you can.
Or if it's later, you're like, all right, how can we charge this?
Right.
And start pivoting to that game plan.
Yeah, just because Reno in particular just blows you out, and so does Yogg a lot of the time. And I've found in general, I play around very little with this deck. Because you have so much reload, it's often better to just put your butts on board, play your cards, and make your opponent have the answer. And they may have the answer for the first couple boards. It is very where you start to snowball is that it's very hard to answer the third, fourth, fifth one of those boards successively on successive turns. It's just there aren't enough good removal spells in the format to really deal with that turn after turn after turn. And you just need one board to stick. So from that perspective, the only things I'm playing around really are things like Reno, where if I know that I'm getting into turn 9 and I'm against something that's shown themselves to be a Reno deck, I might hold some stuff back just because I know I'm about to get one-sided wiped out. If there's a really, really juicy minion for Yogg to steal, I might wait a turn for them to use the board clear one so that I can trade it off and then play that. But in general, a lot of the removals, especially early, are going to be awkward. Like, yeah, maybe try not to play into a malfunction if you can help it. Right? Like try to have like 7 health on board if you can do that, just to not play into that really hard. But in general, just like, do you have it? Do you have it? Do you have it? Because eventually they're going to run out.
And sometimes, I mean, this is my personal favorite, is I will present an extremely juicy Bladestorm and then slam the Ziliax on 6. And they're like, oh, gosh, I sure wish I had that Bladestorm.
I mean, that is one advantage to the fact that you're facing true Reno decks a lot of the time. Things with removal. If you've seen the removal, you've seen that card. That is, Reno decks can definitely be very annoying to face, but that is at least one advantage to facing them. especially now that they are all actually true Reno decks. And I think I play around stuff more almost when I'm facing faster matchups. I think about how am I using my keeper strength? How am I using my plushies to swing back? Although usually you just play them if you have a good target for it. Like I usually don't save those, but I do think about, when am I going to want to use my Tarim? If I'm starting to go later, like what are the big threats that I'm going to have to get through? Let me save something to make sure I can charge through on the turn I want to charge through. So part of that for Tarim is like play the first half so you have the second half in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but don't buff the second half if you can help it.
But don't, right.
But if you do, you can just hero power and now you've got 2 big minions. So there's like edge cases for all kinds of things.
If you have Ignis, you have to make sure you find time to actually forge your Muscletron. If you are going to want to play the Ignis. So, or forge the Muscletron, before you need to play a charge minion with it. Like you do want to plan your mana a little bit if you are going to have a big swing turn, so that you've done setup ahead of time. But yeah, in general, I plan ahead a little bit more in a way, almost with faster matchups than with slower matchups where it's, you might bait something, but a lot of times you're just like, do you have it? And if they do have everything, all right, I'm going to kill you from 30.
Yeah.
With charge
sometimes
damage.
Or sometimes they just have everything and you go next and it's fine too.
That's true.
Right. Like that happens.
Also, keep plushie against aggressive matchups, right? Like keep it against Hunter. Keep it against Demon Hunter.
Yeah. Same thing with Audio Medic if you don't have a plushie, because that can also help. I mean, also it's kind of the same thing, except you need the finale in order to get the lifesteal. But sometimes you don't even care because it has rush regardless. It's only the lifesteal that you need the finale for. So sometimes even if you can't get the finale off, it's fine if you just need to keep yourself ahead on board.
And it's not usually hard to get the finale.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not make or break. So, and yes, plushie is huge. I had a game where I faced a mage who got like the most beautiful mage curve. Keyboard on 2, the elemental spell on 3, that summoned the 4/4 taunt elusive, which is the situation where you do want that, plus a 3/3, and then they like coined manufacturing error, and then but I had plushies, I had audio medics, I was able to just survive. And then I did get a little bit lucky in that they didn't roll. They had 2 more elemental spells and they rolled the 4/4 elusive for one of them on their kill turn. So that was a little lucky on my part, but you do have a lot of stabilization in this deck if you need to.
That was one of the reasons I fell off playing Spell Mage, was just, it can be very dependent on like, well, if I get discount or spell damage here, I win. Oh, nope.
Yeah.
I mean, advice I've seen from people who play a lot of that deck is you do need to sometimes just play it as if you're going to get the thing you want, but it is frustrating because it is not actually Discover.
Yes.
Yeah.
That deck would be way better if it was Discover.
Yes, definitely. All right, well, I think we've covered this pretty well. I hope that people enjoy this deck as much as we've enjoyed it, and it probably is something where you will see people trying to target it to some extent because it is popular and it is strong. But
if that's happening, try the Excavate variant, right? Because
you will surprise everyone.
Yep.
And then they'll be like, oh, well, at least they don't have charge, but you do have charge.
Yeah. The other thing, really nice, Outfit Tailor is the miniaturized plushie's best friend. Especially in aggressive matchups, but even in other ones, right? Like, just being able to have this 4-mana play of, okay, all these buffs I've been putting on the Tailor, but that haven't hit this miniaturized card because it didn't exist until I played the Tiger's plushie. You get to just transfer them over, and that can create massive swings. Like, you don't have to save Outfit Tailor for the charge damage.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah. I mean, just putting it on anything that can hit face sometimes is just good enough, even if it's not lethal.
Or even just sometimes, even if it's not that buffed, it just dominates an early board, and they can't swing back. So, Outfit Tailor is not just a combo card. +2/+2 is a lot. Like, Handbuff Warrior, when it was a thing,
centered around a 2-mana spell that you played on turn 5, because that's what it gave +2/+2. And that amount of stats to a lot of these minions is extremely significant. Like, don't be afraid to use a 4/3 deckhand because you just need to clear something, and you don't know when your next weapon is going to come around, right? So there's lots of situations where it's just like, play your stuff.
Yes. Except for in the specific circumstance where you really do need to get from 30, even against control decks often, like, just play your stuff. Can have a lot of big stuff continuously. They don't always have it. Sometimes they have it next game, but they don't always have it.
And the games are relatively quick. So, but I guess the only other thing is that, yes, this is an aggressive deck, but you don't need to curve out with this deck. Like, you are better off holding something like the 1/1 Taunt Divine Shield in your hand. Well, to protect her and also to buff her, right?
No, I'm just saying the card's named Righteous Protector.
Oh, Righteous Protector. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, so like you could hold that in your hand just to buff it, right? Like, you don't really need to start going until like turn 4, turn 3 or 4, depending on if you have the coin or not. You want a weapon, and then turn 4 or 5, again, depending on whether you have a coin or not, is really when you're going to start going. Because like the Righteous Protector in particular, and some of the other minions, like sometimes if you're playing Drone Deconstructor, you can play the front half on 1 because you want to buff the Spark Bot. But like, for obviously a deckhand, you don't want to be playing on 1. Like some of the other utility minions, you don't want to play on. You don't want to play early. You just want to get the weapon down and have them be bigger, because you want to have as many big bodies on the board. And like a 3/3 or a 4/4 Righteous Protector is much better in the mid game than a 1/1 Righteous Protector is in the early game.
And that also, save your coin for the weapon almost always, unless you really like didn't find it. Like, don't be like, oh, I have a couple turn 2 plays, I'm going to coin out a turn 2 play. No. Just skip turn 1. You have a lot of comeback. It's okay. You want to tempo your pressure when it is a lot of pressure, because your stuff, there's like a graph. You want like the intersection of the supply demand curve of like, it's gotten big enough, but it's still early enough in the game. That's your like maximum tempo. So it's still maximum tempo, but it may not be like on 1, because they are getting bigger as the game goes on.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at Concede.com. You can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show, patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com, and write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede, as well as like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CoinConcede. And if you would like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Walu, Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Forgiven One, Grizzly Bear, and Tyler Knife. Coin Concedes.
I'll start. 1/1 came into the Discord to say that they had gotten First Time Legend by really focusing on a couple decks and using the show and all of that, and it's awesome. This was a little while ago, but I wasn't on last week. Also, again, thank you to my coaching patrons for their flexibility with me being sick, and to my co-hosts for, it was really fun to be a listener to the show again. I very much enjoyed the show, even though, of course, I'm sitting there like, I would have said this right here. Also, I realized I am a major reason why the show is long, so sorry, everyone, or you're welcome, depending.
We came in short today. It's okay.
Well, we're not done yet, so don't jinx it.
It's fine.
And finally, coin concede to my partner, who somehow didn't get sick, and has just been really, really helpful, making me soup and just keeping my spirits up and taking care of everything while I was recovering. So I really appreciate that. Doing extra dishes, even, Wow. So I appreciate all of that.
Wicked.
Well, I am going to coin concede to the developer of a game called Trash of the Titans, which I have not played yet, but I am planning to this weekend. It is a Final Fantasy roguelike starring trash mammals. And I just like I needed this so badly yesterday because yesterday was the day I was on the train ride from hell, and then I got home and last night I saw this and it's just cheered me up immediately. I'm just gonna read this paragraph from the Rock Paper Shotgun article that I found about this. Turn order is set before each round, and each trash mammal has their own specialization. Badger is a tank, able to clear gaps by charging with a bonus buff to attack damage based on how much health they're missing. Raccoon is a sneak thief, able to turn invisible and backstab. They can actually cloak stab, then recloak in a single round, although this eats through MP, which regens slowly throughout. Happily, they also provide some bonus regen for squad cohesion. Possum is an archer, able to take advantage of the aforementioned elevation. And Skunk is a fart shaman with poison gas attacks used for board control. I have no idea if this game is good. I am willing to spend the money to find out because this sounds absolutely delightful. And I am even just the fact that this game exists cheers me up. So coin concede to them.
Cool. Well, I'm going to coin concede to Pilot because we did a coaching earlier today and oh goodness, that did not go great. We were trying out the like Shopper Naga hybrid Demon Hunter, and it is just very feast or famine, that deck sometimes. And we were going through the famine. It was a tough time. I'm sure better players could have done better, but it did not feel great with some of those draws. And soldier through it. And yeah, I always feel a little bad when a coaching goes that way, but yeah, what are you gonna do?
Well, and then sometimes you have a coaching where you just can't lose, and then you take that deck and climb 8,000 ranks. So you take the good with the bad, I guess. Well, I guess unless Edel, you had anything else?
Nope, that's all.
Nope. All right, so that's gonna do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and coin your painter's virtue. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend.